Hello and welcome to Movies for Dumb Guys. I am your host, Joe Johnson. And as always, I'm joined by Ryan Sharp.
Thank you for having me.
Tim Williams.
It's clobbering time.
Back from vacation, Rich Rollins.
It's me, everybody.
And special guest, straight from Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi, Q.
Q Smash.
All right, so we have a interesting topic today, probably our most challenging task to try and come up with our favorite superhero movies of all time. Now, there's been some debate about whether to call it a comic book movie podcast or a superhero movie podcast. We're going to go with superheroes for now so that we can include movies that might not have originated on paper. And so that's what we're going to go with. But if you have a legitimate cause to argue, we will hear your argument. All right.
I got some of those.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
All right. So on my list, I'm going to do my top five, and then a little bit later I'll give you the rest. So starting with number one on my list. The Dark Knight. I consider The Dark Knight the greatest superhero movie of all time. Batman Begins was pretty darn good. Even though I thought it took way too long to introduce Batman, probably like, 45 minutes or an hour into the movie, he finally appeared in costume. I thought Dark Knight took it to the next level. I thought Heath Ledger's performance was unforgettable. He, of course, won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. I love the themes, the messages in the movie about good versus evil and what does it take to push a good person over the edge. I loved everything about this movie. Not only do I call it the greatest comic book movie or superhero movie of all time, but I really think it's one of the greatest movies ever made, and is probably in my top 20 all-time favorite movie list. So, Ryan, your thoughts?
This did not make my top five. I will say that I only have a top four, and the fifth spot is up for negotiation. So you can convince me, people, of what you think that my top five should be.
The Dark Knight did not make your top five.
Did I stutter?
Did it make your top 10?
Maybe. I stopped at 4. I said I stopped at 4. It's on my short list, all right?
Why so serious?
That's just blasphemy. That is blasphemy. How what?
Listen, you have your opinion. I have mine.
I'm shocked.
Why
So,
so serious?
but let me finish. No, I really like this movie a lot, though. I think this is the best one. Maybe Batman Forever because they had the nipple suit, but no, I think that, all joking aside, I think The Dark Knight is the best one. I think the acting in it was amazing. Obviously, Heath Ledger went above and beyond there. The only thing I didn't like about it was Gyllenhaal. I don't think that fit.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of her casting. I actually preferred Katie Holmes, believe it or not.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Gyllenhaal, but yeah, so I'll agree with you there. But I didn't think it affected the movie.
Yeah, it didn't ruin it for me, that's for sure. But every time I was just watching it the other night, and I was like, it just doesn't work for me. Like, she's just like, soccer mom kind of. I don't know. Like,
yeah. Tim, where does The Dark Knight fall on your list?
Okay. My top 10 are not the greatest comic book movies or superhero movies of all time. It's the ones that I like to watch more than one time, that I like to go back and watch.
That's a great way to. I did the same thing. That's why I'm agreeing.
Oh, that's a big part of my criteria too. Can you rewatch it over and over and over again?
So unfortunately, this did not make my top 10. Not saying that it's a bad movie. It's just not one that I like to go back to watch. Honestly, no Batman movies made my top 10.
Wow.
Same.
Starting with Tim Burton's Batman, there's just something about him that I just am not crazy about. I remember like all the hype for Tim Burton's the original Batman, and it just don't do it for me.
guys shut up. This is our list.
Well, I think
just
I'm
wanna
gonna
say-
leave now.
I just want to say one thing about Maggie Gyllenhaal. I remember like thinking, I think it had a lot to do with the lighting, but I remember thinking that she looked like one of the doctors in the Twilight Zone episode, Eye of the Beholder.
I totally agree. I thought the same thing.
Okay.
Rich, any thoughts on The Dark Knight? And then we'll let Q chime in, and he'll use up the rest of the time we have here today.
Second best DC movie ever made, and it would definitely be in my top 5. It was a good movie all around.
So where was it in your top 5 then? If it is in your top 5, we're doing a top 5 show.
Well, I will put it at number 3.
Number 3.
And I can tell by the way you looked around, you have
He's
a
making
concrete
it up
list.
as he, yeah,
He's
yeah,
just making it up as he goes along.
yeah.
Well, we all know.
Okay.
I actually agree with Joe Johnson here. The Dark Knight did make my number 1 as a movie. It actually reached the criteria that you prescribed and that you prescribed. I remember when it came out in theaters. I think I went to the show to see it like 8 times.
Wow.
And then like when it came out on DVD, like I told everybody in my family, like all I wanted for Christmas was the Dark Knight double disc special edition. Like that's all I wanted. You could keep the money, you can keep the clothes, just give me the Dark Knight.
Did you get it?
And I got it. And like because I was still in high school when it came out. So like I was on Christmas vacation. So like my routine was literally for 2 weeks. I woke up, I took a shower, and I watched the Dark Knight.
Wow.
Wow.
Like I watched
At least you
it
got
for
the
2
shower
weeks.
in there.
Yeah, like I
Right.
watched it like every day for 2 weeks before I went back to school.
Now, on our
That's
Oscar
impressive.
podcast, I insisted that it should have been nominated for Best Picture, and I will go one step further and say that it should have won Best Picture for that year. When you look at the other movies that came out the same year, I think it is a tragedy, a travesty, that it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture that year.
I 100% agree, and it just falls under the victimize of it's got a
It's
Kate
a
and
s-
Kyle for the main
Yeah.
character.
I mean, it's got the superhero stigma. So
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
we'll see if a superhero movie ever gets nominated for Best Picture.
Right. Now, moving on to number 2 on my list. This made number 2. Not only is it one of my all-time favorite movies, but I think it kind of started this whole Marvel golden age that young people are so lucky to be living in this time period right now to get some of these great movies in theaters. I feel that it all started off with
I am Iron Man.
Iron Man, I think, is the greatest Marvel movie and my second favorite superhero movie of all time. I wasn't a huge fan of Iron Man in the comics. I watched that Saturday morning cartoon that used to be on in the 70s, but I wasn't a huge follower of Iron Man. And so I went to the theater with really low expectations and was absolutely blown away. When he escapes his imprisonment in the suit, I was on my feet. Like, I was cheering. I can't remember the last time I was on my feet cheering during a movie prior to Iron Man. And so Marvel's Iron Man is number 2 on my list, in big part due to Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. Ryan.
Never seen it. Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding.
I kid.
Iron Man actually came in number 2 for me as well. This is right in my wheelhouse. It's Tony Stark's, whether he's Iron Man or just being Tony Stark, his smart aleck comments, his demeanor, the way he carries himself. I fell in love with this film. I, like you, I could care less about Iron Man before this movie came out. It was one of my least favorite characters, actually. And then this movie changed everything. So I did not like 2 or 3.
3 was better than 2. 2
Right.
was forgettable.
I don't like Don Cheadle in the role he was in, but I thought for sure, they nailed it. Iron Man, number 2 on my list.
Tim, where does Iron Man fall on your list?
Right there with you guys, number 2.
Wow.
And I feel the same way. I don't remember. I mean, I had like some Avengers comics with Iron Man in it and stuff, and so the same thing. I was like, oh, okay, it looked cool and everything, but if if Robert Downey Jr. hadn't played it the way that he played it, I don't think that if he would have played it more like the comic book Tony Stark, which is like pretty serious,
Yeah, and dark. Yeah.
I don't think it would have resonated with everybody the way that it did.
And that's part of the reason why I think 2 was a bit of a failure, is because I think they went in that direction. They played up as boozing and stuff like that, and it just didn't go over as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of the other 2, but definitely a fan of Iron Man 1. And like you said, it launched the modern day era of superheroes, I would say.
I agree. Rich?
As much as I enjoyed this movie, it didn't even break my top 10.
Top 10?
Nah, it was a good movie. It was entertaining, but there's 10 other movies I thought were better.
Rich, I've missed your craziness over the past few podcasts. Q, help us out here.
I'm sorry, I can't. It didn't break my top 10 either.
What?
Look,
I will fight you.
And I went to see Iron Man twice. I seen Iron Man twice in the theaters. And
Too good a writing for you?
Was it too cheerful, too bright?
Okay, my criteria was, did it represent the hero well? 25% did it represent the hero well? How was the villain? The impact, I gave you the impact because it did start the MCU. And was it a good movie? I didn't think that the movie held up. The villain was terrible. They totally, they so underutilized.
What's his name?
Obadiah Stane. No, what's the actor's name?
Bridges?
Bridges. An actor of his kind. Come on now.
The dude.
They totally blew it with that.
That's
And
my
then
number 5.
the next 2 were even worse. And then you tried to fix it. Iron Man 3, you tried to fix Iron Man 3 by having that little one-off with the real Mandarin coming to get revenge. No.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no. You messed up Iron Man. Period. And just 3 to me was just the icing on the crab cake.
I agree with you with 2 and 3, but I can't agree with you about the first one.
I liked 1. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like Richie said 10 other movies. I feel like it's 20 other movies that could that I could
not expect
that are better than Iron Man.
All right, moving on. I get a feeling you guys aren't going to agree with me on this one, but
I disagree.
This next movie, it actually was kind of neck and neck with Iron Man. These 2 movies for me are almost interchangeable because Iron Man, like you said, kicked off the MCU, but this movie is the one that most experts agree that if you were to watch all the Marvel movies in order, this is the first one you should watch, and that is Captain America: The First Avenger. And I absolutely love this movie. I love the fact that it was set during World War II. I love the origin story. I think it's one of the best origin stories I've ever seen. I love the villain. I love the girl. I love the action. I loved everything about Captain America: The First Avenger. And all the Captain America movies, I think, have been absolutely fantastic. I think all 3 movies with Captain America in the title are easily in my top 20. They're all fantastic. So, do you still agree, Ryan, after hearing my spiel, or have I swayed you?
Speaking of fantastic, I loved him as
Johnny Storm.
Yeah, I definitely.
He was good.
But again, that's my thing. That's smart Alec. In this movie, I liked the movie. Didn't make my top 10. I don't know if it would have made my top 20 since we're just going that route. It might have, but it was entertaining. It was fun. I was creeped out when they made him a little kid kind of body.
Oh, those effects were amazing.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was creepy.
Yeah.
I was creeped out.
That was incredible. I don't know, watching it on video, I don't know if those effects hold up as well now, but I remember when I saw it in the theater, I was like, this is remarkable. Like, I couldn't believe how they transformed him into a scrawny little guy, and then, I thought the effects were groundbreaking.
Captain America is another one that I didn't really care for before the movie came out. I did become a little bit of a fan, after watching the movie. I think they did a really good job, but I'm Team Stark.
Tim, where does Captain America fall?
I have a Captain America movie in my top 10. That one is not. Only because I like...
You're talking about the one where he wears the motorcycle helmet? No.
No. I have Civil War there, and I like Civil War better. And only because I didn't want to put 3 Captain America movies in my top 10, basically, but I did like it. And I do I do remember thinking that Chris Evans was not going to be a good Captain America. And I do remember thinking, and I still feel this way, maybe I shouldn't, because guys have proven me wrong. He has proven me wrong. But I remember thinking, no, you already had your shot at your superhero. You were Johnny Storm. You shouldn't get anything else. Ben Affleck, you were Daredevil. You should not get Batman.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. He changed my mind too. So so I can't really go with that. But yeah, I loved it. Great movie. Red Skull was cool. Everything about it was cool. I agree with you. I like all 3 Captain America movies. I just like Civil War better than the other 2.
Yeah. I don't even know if I should throw it to you guys, because if Iron Man didn't crack your top 20, then I'm guessing Captain America isn't in your top 50.
No, it did make the top 50.
Oh, that's good to know.
Top 10, no. I'm not a big fan of Captain America. I never liked his character.
Wow.
I'm not even a Superman fan, really, to tell you the truth. It's just the character of it. And yeah, there's probably about 10, 20 other superhero movies that are way better.
Q, I don't even know if I should ask you to chime in.
When Captain America throws his mighty shield. No, Captain America actually is like number 13 on my list.
Okay.
I
pretty high.
couldn't get it in the top 10.
All right.
I just
Couldn't fit it in.
I couldn't fit it in, and
No matter how much lube.
it was a good movie. It was a really good movie, and Hugo Weaving was, oh my god, if Tom Hiddleston doesn't play Loki, Hugo Weaving easily would still be the best Marvel villain ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Like ever. And I just not a fan of the third one. Okay on the second one. I thought they went away from a lot of the stuff that made the first one great. But I really did like the first one. It just wasn't good enough to crack my top 10.
Okay. Number 4 on my list. Q, you probably will appreciate this.
I'm Batman.
1989, Tim Burton's Batman is number 4 on my list. I remember sitting in the theater seeing this. It's one of those vivid memories I have of sitting in a movie theater. I went in not knowing what to expect. I know some people, friends and family that I knew, were initially disappointed. They were expecting Adam West, camp, pow, biff, bam. And I love the movie because it wasn't that it was a serious take, a gothic take on Batman, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought the car, the Batmobile, is one of the greatest movie cars of all time. If I had one complaint, and maybe this is the reason it's not ranked higher on my list, is at the time I thought Michael Keaton was miscast, and I still think to this day that someone else probably should have been cast as Batman.
Val Kilmer.
Well, he came later, and I don't know if he did any better of a job, but
He did.
George Clooney.
Clooney didn't. Kilmer did.
So I think someone could have. I don't know. And it's only now. It's not Keaton's acting ability. I just think it's his stature and his physical presence that I just didn't think he was a believable Batman. But beside that, I thought Jack Nicholson almost stole the movie doing the Joker, and I think this is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. Ryan, your thoughts?
Woohoo! Well, this did not make my list. However, I'll say I really loved it, especially when it came out. It was a game changer. You know, it just, the movies now have, you know, we have so many to choose from now and it's just gotten better as time goes on. So it just kind of fell off for me. But at the time, I thought it was amazing. I love the story. I love Jack in it. He was amazing. You know, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? It was great. And then Kim Basinger, she soared up the masturbation charts after that movie. So, you know, everybody wanted a piece of her. So,
yeah. Tim, you already talked about this, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I like it, but it did not make my top 10. And first of all, I don't think they should have killed off the Joker at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you about Michael Keaton. And there was just something about it. I think Tim Burton sometimes gets a little too stylized just for stylization sake.
And I think that happened in Batman Returns. I think he went overboard. I thought that was too Tim Burton-y.
Yeah.
I thought he kind of reined it in the first one. But
now this movie in 1989 should have been the Iron Man of that time. It should have launched a new era for superhero movies, and it didn't.
Right.
Warner Brothers just stuck to Batman, Batman, Batman. They could have started doing other DC stuff at the time, and they didn't. You know, somebody could have stepped up and started doing Marvel movies. I mean, I know that what's his name tried to do the Fantastic Four in '94. But,
right.
What's his name?
The
Still the best version of Fantastic Four.
I agree. Roger
Corman.
Corman.
Corman, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, enough on that one. Go
All
ahead,
right.
Rich.
Rich, your thoughts on 1989 Batman?
Didn't make my list, but like Ryan said, this is something that started it, and it just fell off, and it played its purpose, which was to launch the future of what we're seeing now.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Took
the
long
path
enough.
that franchise took almost killed comic book movies. I mean, after Batman and Robin, comic book movies were dead until
Yeah, thanks a
Marvel
lot, Warner Brothers.
revived it. Yeah.
Exactly.
That was actually number 3 on my list.
Nice. I figured.
Number 3. It just, as a kid, when your favorite character is already Batman, you're watching the Batman animated series, and when you're reading the comic books, and to me, the reason it's number 3 is because if you were to take the Joker right off the comic book pages and stick him in the movie, it would be Jack Nicholson, and it would be the way he portrayed the Joker. And don't get me nothing wrong with Heath Ledger's portrayal it's the greatest, but it's the greatest in the sense of if someone in real life just snapped. And to me, Batman 1989 is the perfect example of taking what's on the page and putting it on the screen, just like how you would see it in the cartoon. The only difference is I think Batman v Superman might have had better fight scenes, the way Batman fights, and the way on the TV show and the comic books, the way he fights would be better in BVS, but the way that you've seen it on the page is what I felt Tim Burton tried to do, and I do agree with Batman Returns that he kind of went overboard with that.
Right.
But
too many characters, too
yeah.
overstuffed.
And but 89 was that movie, like you said, it should have started anew, but it didn't.
Yeah.
But we got 2 good Batman movies out of it.
Right.
I can't complain about it.
All right, moving on to number 5. I wrestled with what movie to put in this slot because I knew I was going to talk about it a little bit. I could have thrown another Marvel movie in there. Could have went with Christopher Reeve's Superman, but I didn't. At number 5, I went with The Rocketeer. I saw The Rocketeer when it came out in theaters. I absolutely love this movie. I can't explain. I mean, I guess it wasn't it didn't pull in a lot of money at the box office, and that might explain why it never got a sequel. But I think that movie should have launched a franchise. I think Jennifer Connelly was just stunning. I loved everything about the movie. It was a Disney movie, of course, and I'll never understand why this movie didn't have the popular following. I guess you could call it a cult classic today, but it never seemed to resonate with moviegoers, and I don't understand it. If this movie's on a lazy Sunday afternoon, I will stop everything and sit and watch this movie. I absolutely love it. Ryan, your thoughts on The Rocketeer?
Well, let me tell you why. Is because it had no appeal. It seemed like it was outdated and old when it came out, even though it wasn't. It just never, for me anyways, it didn't appeal to me. I never really wanted to see it. I tried to force myself to watch it just to say I saw it, and I lost interest really quickly. Never finished it.
Tim?
I didn't see this movie until you showed it to me a few years ago, and I liked it, but at the time you showed it to me, it's probably a little bit dated as far as special effects go and some of the other things. But yeah, if I would have saw it in what year did it come out? 1989?
91, I think. 91 it came out.
Okay, if I would have saw it then, I probably would have appreciated it more. But yeah.
You guys want to chime in on this?
I did not see it. So
Never saw The Rocketeer. Wow.
I'll chime in only because the fact that I can sit here and say I did not see The Rocketeer, but I've seen Radar Men from the Moon from 1940 something, the serial, which I have on VHS, lets you know why The Rocketeer did not make it. Because I'd rather watch the serial Radar Men from the Moon than watch The Rocketeer.
I guess that's why I love The Rocketeer, is that it was a throwback to the 40s style swashbuckling movies.
Yeah, but every time I see it, it just reminds me of, because Radar Men from the Moon is the same thing. He's got this suit, puts the helmet on. Only difference is it doesn't go back to the back, and he turns a button and he just, and that's it.
Yep.
So you have seen the Rocketeer, or you have not?
I haven't.
Oh,
But
you
the fact-
haven't seen
I
it.
haven't.
Okay.
But the fact that I've seen Radar Men from the Moon,
Okay.
and I own Radar Men from the Moon, is a testament to me why the Rocketeer failed.
All right, well, that takes care of my top 5. If we have time, I'll rattle off the rest of my top 10 list. But for now, let's throw it to Ryan. What is on your list that we haven't discussed? Have we touched on your number 1 movie yet?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, everybody's touching me, but my number 1. See, there we go. My number 1. Again, I talked to you guys about that snarky, sarcastic, great superhero.
The role that you believed you could have played.
The role that I believe I could have played.
Green Lantern.
Oh, okay.
The Deadpool.
God, number
Yeah.
one?
That's number 1 on your list.
That is number 1 on my list. I absolutely love this movie. I can watch it a million times. It makes me crack up. I love comedy, so you throw a superhero with comedy, it definitely tops my list. I thought it was a good story, and I just can't say enough about the writing of it, like that sarcasm.
It was a breath of fresh air. I love the fact that he broke the fourth wall, talked to the audience. There were all kinds of in-jokes with Hugh Jackman and all that stuff. And, yeah, it was unlike anything we had seen in comic book movies.
Even the opening credits,
Oh, so maybe the best opening credits ever.
it was amazing. Like it locked me in right from the get-go, held my attention the entire way, and I couldn't wait to see it again and to tell other people about it.
Tim, I have a feeling this ranks pretty highly on your list.
Yeah, as high as it can go. It's number 1 for me as well. And yeah, well, I mean, you know that Deadpool has been my favorite character since the early '90s, comic book character.
So that means you had really high expectations going in, and it must have surprised you that this movie met your expectations.
It did, totally, because I did not want a Deadpool movie because I thought they would ruin it, and
Yeah.
I thought it would suck. Making it rated R, I think helped. I don't think they necessarily had to do that, but
So glad they did.
but
Oh, I'm glad they did too.
I don't
they
think
did.
no, the original Deadpool comics were not like they are now, and you know they could have did it more like that. But it helps though. I mean, believe me, it helps that they made it rated R, and I think that opened the door for like Logan and some other future rated R comic book movies too, superhero movies too.
Kind of an
But,
interesting side note about Deadpool. I think people who expected like a Marvel movie or a DC movie who went in and saw it, who might not have known of Deadpool's origin, I think they might have been shocked by it. And I know one story in particular, Dina Senafani, Fox 2 News anchor, posted on her Facebook page that when she went to go see it, a few minutes into it, she had an anxiety attack, and they had to stop the movie and bring in paramedics. And I was like so shocked when I read that the movie induced anxiety in her, and I always thought that was an interesting
Just
story.
from like the opening credit scene.
I don't know how
Weird.
far into the movie she got, but I guess it wasn't what she expected
Okay.
for someone who expected the Avengers or Iron Man.
It was the
Well-
baby hand. I
Well,
think.
yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Okay.
You guys want to chime in?
Yeah, sure. Number 5 on my list, Deadpool was. I thought it was hilarious. And
Okay.
like Tim said, I was a little worried when it was coming out, too, because I did know a little bit about Deadpool. And I was like, and Marvel at the time was, even though making this universe, they're also kind of screwing up from the comics. So I wasn't too excited about it, but it turned out to be pretty darn good.
Yeah, pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. Deadpool, to me, I think it needed to be rated R, but I was very worried when it came out. But my worries started to get eased once I started seeing the trailers and the billboards and stuff like that. So, okay, well, maybe we might have something here. It did make my top 10, but it's not in my top 5.
And that movie almost did not even get made.
Yeah, they had to like beg for it, right?
Right.
They somebody
Sexual
somebody,
favors.
Somebody leaked.
Casting couch.
No, they shot the
Somebody leaked
they shot
the
opening
footage.
title.
Oh,
and,
right.
they
and
leaked
got it out there. Yeah.
Wow.
And caused the buzz for the fans clamoring for it.
Mhm.
Paid off.
That's what got it out there.
All right, what else you got on your top 5 that we haven't discussed yet?
So top 2 again was Iron Man. Number 3 on my list is it's my list, so I'll do whatever I want kind of movie. I'm just gonna kind of give you some background on why I chose this. I think it's a great movie, is why I chose this. But going through the list, doing this research, it was on quite a few lists, so that's why I decided that okay, I can go ahead and put it on mine. So number 3 for me is The Crow.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if the room was going to get hostile there. So
No, not at all. I think we're all in universal agreement there.
yes, great. So I absolutely love this movie. It's dark. It has a lot of story behind it with the death.
And the fact that not only was he killed in real life and now we're watching him on the screen, but then his character gets killed in the movie, and it was just so surreal watching it on the screen.
And it was like it was the first time that they were able to digitally put somebody else's face on to finish the movie, I believe, anyways. So I just from start to finish, just blown away by this movie, and this is one that I'll watch every time it's on. I'll throw it on. I can't tell enough people about it. Like, oh, Crow, you got to watch it. You've never seen that. How could you have missed that kind of thing? So
I need to revisit it. I haven't watched it in a while, but I agree. That's one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Tim?
Yep. Did not make my top 10, but yeah, I agree. I remember seeing it at the theater, and I loved it, and yeah, I thought it was great.
Richie?
It didn't break my top 50,000
Really?
because I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it.
I've seen The Crow.
Every time I went to see it, something happened where I was on my way. Movie was either sold out or I had a baseball game, so I could never go with my friends.
Q?
Did not crack my top 10, only because I wasn't sure if it counted as superhero. But if I would redo the list, it'd probably crack my top 10. But be sure it is in my top 15.
All right. What else you got, Ryan?
All right, so I'm glad that one went over so well. Here's one that's probably not going to go over so well.
Let me get a sound effect ready.
Yeah,
here.
go ahead, get a sound effect.
All right.
Ready?
What do you got?
I have Disney's Big Hero 6.
Okay, not worthy of a sound effect, but like
Not
Richie, I've
worthy
never
of
seen
a
this
sound
one.
effect.
I have no interest in seeing this one. What was it about it that you loved so much?
It took me just by surprise. Like I was just shocked. What a great movie it was. A great message, great writing. I know it's a little more kid type movie, and most of these movies are more dark and adult oriented, but I was just blown away by this movie. I thought the Baymax character was just amazing, and super funny and relatable, and I just thought it was a great movie from start to finish, great message, and I actually saw it twice in the theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll add it to my list right after Sandlot. Tim, have you seen it?
No, I've seen. I think I saw like the last 10 minutes of it.
Wait,
and which
I don't want to cut you off, Tim, but you guys are telling me that you go to the movies to see Beauty and the Beast.
I never saw Beauty and the Beast.
Okay,
I
Johnson,
never
you
saw
did.
either version of Beauty and the Beast.
You're forgiven for there. Then. You guys were just talking about, Disney movies are great movie events that everybody has to go see, and now both of you guys didn't go see this at the theater. I'm shocked.
No, but you actually don't think I'm being sarcastic or anything, but you're actually convincing me to check it out. So I will check it out.
That's what I was going to say. I saw the last 10 minutes, and I know I want to see the whole thing, but I just haven't got around to it yet.
Fair
but
enough.
I will definitely check it out at some point.
Q, Richie, have you guys seen it?
I don't even remember hearing about it.
Man, what planet do you live on?
I thought I actually own it.
You
So
should.
It was a really good movie.
Okay.
And if you remember, for about 30 seconds, it got a little dark there for a
Yeah.
minute when he took the chip out. Yeah,
he
so
he went
it
crazy.
I went in there not knowing what to expect, and I kind of went in with the same way I went into with Kick-Ass. Didn't know what to expect, and when I came out, I was like, "Holy crap, that was really good."
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
and you have one more on your list that you haven't gotten to yet? Top 5?
And so that was my top 4. My top 5, like I said, it's an open slot, so I'm looking for inspiration from you guys. I will say, since I have this time with my number 5 spot, that even though it's not my number 5, I do have to mention Howard the Duck is a great superhero movie.
Wait, let me go back to
There
that
we go.
sound
Yeah,
effect.
get that sound effect ready.
I had ready to go here.
I got one right now.
Tim, what is in your top 5 that we have not discussed yet?
Okay, Deadpool was 1, Iron Man was 2. Number 3 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy.
No argument here.
All right. I had bought, when I was in middle school, they had a Rocket Raccoon miniseries comic, and it was like one of the first. I mean, I had like a lot of comics, but I never like for whatever reason, I never like sought out like to finish like a series, but I purposely finished that series. Didn't even know that Rocket was still around in the Marvel universe, honestly, until this movie was coming out. And I remember when it was announced, I was like, what are they doing? This is, you're gonna go with that, already before like all these other characters that are like, established, whatever.
I thought the same thing.
They really didn't have a choice. It's probably all they had.
See, I thought the same
there's
thing.
Like, wait, there's like so many Marvel characters that they could do before them. Not that it matters, but yeah, that's true.
Here's
they
the,
didn't own all the rights at that time. That's true.
Here's the thing about Guardians is when I saw the trailers and stuff, I was like, what the hell is going on? A raccoon in a tree? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in, low expectations. I saw it. And after seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, I realized that Marvel can do no wrong. That they took that property and with all those characters and created an enormously entertaining movie. I stopped questioning Marvel and I bowed to them now.
I agree, because I was familiar with Rocket, I was familiar with Groot, but I was not familiar with any of the other ones. I loved it, and I liked the second one too. I didn't put it in my top 10. But
I enjoyed the second one too.
But, yeah.
Both of those movies reached my top 10, but not my top 5. But very good movies. Love them both.
Both Volume 1 and Volume 2's in your top 10?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
they
good.
go together. With me.
Interesting. Q?
Neither one reached my top 10, but I Guardians I didn't know a lot about, so I went in with low expectations. Came out very, very surprised. At a point, I thought it was better than the Avengers, but it was one of the movies that you have to see it again, knowing going into what you've already seen, and it hit reality with me. But no, it's a good movie. I can understand why it would be in your top 5. So
Anything?
I was like, I debated about that one and also part 2. I'm kind of like you, Rich. I actually really enjoyed part 2 almost more, maybe.
I agree.
The opening sequence with Groot and just the character of Groot, I thought was much better in the second one. He's funny and
the father-son relationship and everything. It was really solid storytelling.
Absolutely. So and I didn't want to see this movie either. My son went and saw it because he's a comic book guy, and he was telling me how great it was. So I was like, all right, I'll check this out. And I was just like, because I thought it was a knockoff, because I don't know a lot of the comic history of things. So I just thought it was like, what are they trying to do here? They're trying to make something up. And then I was just really blown away.
And quite possibly the best soundtracks of any comic book movies, both Volume 1 and Volume 2.
I was listening to it today at work.
Yeah.
Actually, and when I was driving around, I was listening to the first soundtrack.
Yeah. All right, what else is in your top 5 that we haven't touched on yet?
My number 4 is the Avengers, the movie that Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk were Thor were going towards. I was a little worried because I didn't know how they were going to handle that with all the different
the personalities,
big name characters and personalities, to be able to get them all like their big moments in the movie and whatever. But I think they nailed it. The only complaint that I have is the villains that they decided to go with in that the aliens. I mean, they were,
even though Loki
like
was kind of the villain and the aliens were secondary, but I see
that's
what
true.
you're saying.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, those guys were. I mean, I don't even remember them from the comics, and when I looked it up, they were like barely ever in the comics.
Yeah.
But
Avengers is number 6 on my list, and I agree with you that that was kind of a curse in the '80s. Like with the Batman movies, trying to throw so many characters in there, it just becomes a cluttered mess. And I was amazed that Avengers pulled it off. Yep.
I think they really hit on something with Avengers, with realizing that Hulk is best served in small doses.
Yeah.
So it really made him a character people liked.
Yep.
Because they didn't have to sit through an hour and a half of him. And I thought it was kind of groundbreaking, and I thought it was really well done. And I was a huge fan of it.
Perfect mix of humor and action.
Yep.
Yes.
Rich?
This is my top 10. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It actually brought me back into the Marvel Universe, because by this time I was starting just to get bored with it. And because I'm waiting for the moment when they all get together instead of just a couple at a time. And the whole build up with Samuel L. Jackson collecting them all, and finally to see it come together was a nice treat.
Do you have your list written down? Because I feel like you've had about 15 movies.
Yeah,
on your top
everything's
10.
in his top 10. The Avengers is actually number 2 on my list.
Really?
Okay, wow.
Mr. DC.
Yeah. No, it reached that criteria. You know, I didn't look at the Shatari as the main villain. I looked at Loki as the main villain. And if you do that, then knocks it out of the park. Only second to Heath Ledger as a villain. The heroes did justice, like you said. You know, with the Hulk, it's kind of that Godzilla mix, because you want to see nothing but Godzilla, but you got to throw the humans in there every now and again.
No, you don't.
I mean, you know, because
That's what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say you got to throw Mothra in there.
You got to. No, you have to. If he's gonna be in our world, we have to be there at least.
Yeah.
You know, you have to show us.
No,
so with the Hulk, it's like you said, we just want to see the Hulk. We don't want to see Bruce Banner. We just want to see the Hulk.
Right.
So that's
I find his mathematical equations and scientific theories riveting.
Yes, they're very. But I actually had no doubts about the Avengers with bringing the characters together because of Joss Whedon. Because I'm a Buffy fan, and if you watch Buffy, he actually, if you go back and watch Buffy, each character actually had a role and had a significant role. It wasn't like, you know, you have some shows where you have an ensemble cast and it's like, oh, they're just there.
Maybe that's what helped. Maybe his television background helped him devote time to each character.
Because, I mean, you got to think about it. He did it where, like in Buffy, he did it where each, for one season, like her best friend was the bad guy. Willow was the bad guy for like a whole season. Yeah. You know, but it was like he knows how to devote time to each character. So when I heard Joss Whedon I was like, oh, just because he did Buffy and he did Angel, and each character had their own solid story at a time, I had no worries about that.
Okay, I never watched either of those TV shows, so I didn't know.
Does that complete your top 5, or was there one more?
No, that Avengers was my 4.
Okay.
And I am going to move one up because my criteria was the ones that I've watched more than any other. And I was lucky enough to catch this one 2 times in the theater, even though I think it was only at the theater for 1 week. And it is another one of my favorite comic book characters, and I think that they finally got it right with this movie, and it is Punisher Warzone.
All right.
I 100% agree with him.
Thank you, Q.
I 100% agree with him.
Thank you, Q.
I'm sorry, I don't want to jump out of turn, but
no, go ahead.
Punisher Warzone to me was the first Marvel movie that actually got it right.
Who played Punisher in that? Wasn't Thomas Jane, was it?
No, it was.
No, this guy was.
I like the Thomas Jane one actually.
No,
this guy was
no.
better.
This on my list.
This guy was much better.
I like Thomas Jane.
Punisher Warzone is number 10 on my list. Right?
Wow.
I didn't even
That wasn't even on my radar, man.
I can't think of the guy's name that played him, but he was on, what show was he on? Like The Wire or something?
Yeah, he was on
or one of those shows.
And then like something
Ray
Stevenson.
Ray
Stevenson. It was Ray Stevenson.
What year did that come out?
Probably
2008.
Yeah, it was. I'm telling you, Jigsaw was off the chain.
Yeah, they actually did a good villain.
Yeah,
Jigsaw.
with Jigsaw.
His villain from the comics.
Right. It was like it was another one where they took it from the pages and put it right on the screen.
I will say this: that was a female director, and she got it right. Yeah. I remember like going into the theater. I mean, it was like somewhat advertised, but it didn't really have like a huge push. And I think maybe like they had like kind of got the gist that it wasn't going to make huge money, so they kind of backed off in the advertising before I went in there. But I was like blown away.
What did you bump out of the top? What did you bump out of that number 5
I bumped out
slot?
X-Men Days of the Future Past.
All right. I probably would have went with that.
If they would have advertised Warzone, it would have made money.
It wasn't even on my radar, so there must have been
I bought
zero.
it. I probably bought it like the first day that it came out on DVD, and I've watched it repeatedly.
Yeah, wow. I own it.
I'm going with Thomas Jane.
No.
Let me tell you.
Do
you have the sound effect ready? Listen, when I was hanging out with Thomas Jane.
Oh wait. Oh wait. Say that.
Man,
say that again. When you were hanging out with who?
I was hanging out with Thomas Jane.
Oh, you dropped a name. It's by your feet there.
Let me pick that back up.
Dolph Lundgren was a better Punisher than Thomas Jane.
No way.
Yes.
I agree.
Well, I didn't see Dolph Lundgren take an extra backstage, so.
All right, we're pressed for time, and I don't want to leave you guys out. So, Rich, what is in your top 5? Even though I don't see anything in your hand, but what is in your top 5 that we have not discussed?
Number 1 for me is Black Panther. Thought it was the
All right.
perfect superhero.
I'm
movie.
actually, I feel bad that I did not even bring it up yet because it is all the rage right now. It's number one at the box office for 3 weeks in a row. Third week, it made over $60 million,
It's that good of a
which is
movie.
unheard of.
Disagree.
It's having a huge cultural impact. People are embracing this movie, and interesting that you would place it at number one, but I can see where you're going with this. Tell me why you think it is number one.
Because characters are solid. The sub-characters in it are solid.
Great bad guy.
Great bad guy.
That's the only part I liked.
The
Yeah.
movie is shot well. The art is well. The cinematography, everything in it, script.
Didn't we just
solid.
talk about we don't even know what cinematography really is?
I
Well,
guess
it's
I wasn't
digital
there for that.
cinematography.
He was
At the
Digital
Oscars?
cinematography.
At
Oh,
the
yeah,
Oscars?
It was
wasn't
beautiful.
here. He wasn't here that day.
No, at the
That will
Oscar
save-
party.
Oh.
Yeah, we were arguing whether or not
Oh, yeah,
digital creation should qualify as cinematography at the Oscars because you're creating it from scratch. But let's save
It's a
that
beautiful
argument for
canvas.
another day.
It's painted well.
So, Q, what are your thoughts on Black Panther?
You know, I went into it, seen it the first time, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever." Then I seen it the second time, and I was like, "It was okay."
So it doesn't hold. I've only seen it once. So you're saying it doesn't hold up on repeated viewings?
No, it does not. It's just once you get by the hype, it's just another
flat.
good
Yeah.
comic book movie.
My
That's all
biggest,
it is.
my biggest gripe about Black Panther is the fight scene at the end. It was anticlimactic. It was
Very.
unnecessary. Killmonger should have lived. They should have resolved their differences instead of settling it with fisticuffs. I think killing Killmonger and that whole fight sequence, for me, knocked this movie out of my top 10. I really enjoyed it up until that point. So
I didn't even really enjoy the movie. I think it's a good movie. I'm not knocking it, but yeah, there's 20 other movies that I'd rather go see again. So I only saw it once, and that was enough for me. Maybe it's because it was all the hype. I was expecting to be blown away, and I just really wasn't. I thought the story, I didn't love it. I didn't love the characters. I didn't love the fact that the Black Panther only fought when he didn't have his Black Panther powers most of the movie.
Yeah. they'll
So-
save it for a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, the second one maybe will bring me back, but the first one, not so much.
Tim?
I was really looking forward to this because I really liked Black Panther in Civil War, Captain America Civil War.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was a slightly above average superhero movie. And when I walked out of it, I was thinking, well, I don't know if this is just because so many are coming out and we've just reached like a superhero movie glut
Mhm.
or what. But yeah, it was okay. I mean, I liked it. I didn't think it was fantastic.
One thing that I found distracting during the movie, and I don't know if you guys will agree with me here, but the whole time I'm thinking, where's Winter Soldier? Where's Winter Soldier? Because at the end of Civil War, they kind of put him on ice at Wakanda. So I'm thinking, oh, where's he gonna show up? Like I was waiting for him to show up, and
Well, he did.
he did show up after the final credits had rolled, and that kind of surprised me. I thought that he was gonna maybe play a bigger role in this movie, so it was a little distracting that I kept thinking about that.
Yep.
All right. What else is on your top 5?
Number 2 is Logan,
Okay.
and number 4 is Wonder Woman.
All right. Logan did not make my top 10. Wonder Woman did. It came in at number 10. I
bumps his
loved
head sometimes.
Logan, but when I have to talk about comic book movies, superhero movies from my lifespan, starting with Superman on, it's hard for me to have Logan crack that top 10.
Oh,
I think for a younger crowd, I think people were blown away by Logan, and I was too. I really loved Logan, but it just didn't crack my top 10. It's in my top 25, not my
I come
top
from
10.
the era of Superman played by George Reeves.
That's a little before your time.
I did not like. It didn't make my list at all. I had a couple problems. Wonder Woman was a okay movie for me. I didn't love that either. Yeah, I don't know. It's
Well, watching Wonder Woman a second time on cable, or maybe it was DVD, I proclaimed that, yes, I do love that movie. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the No Man's Land sequence where she charged in all by herself was one of the great movie moments, I thought. And so upon repeated viewings, I like Wonder Woman better with each viewing. And I know that sounds pervy, but
Visually, it was great.
Neither of them made my top 10. Wonder Woman is just too uneven for me. Logan, I liked probably better. But yeah, there's just so many other great superhero movies.
Oh, you know
that
why I
did
didn't
not
like
make
Logan?
my
I
top
forgot to
10.
mention that. Sorry.
Why?
I don't like seeing I know it's fine. It happens, but I don't like seeing my superheroes die. I don't like seeing them get old. I don't like seeing them
I
get
think that's what elevated
dementia.
the movie for
and
me.
I don't want to see.
I thought it.
That's why I
know-
don't like Superman, because he dies so many freaking times
Yeah,
in
and
the comic
comes
book.
back.
He comes back to life.
Yeah, no,
Let
for
him
somebody
die,
for
let him be
somebody
gone.
as invincible
somebody
as he
else
is, he
take
sure
over.
dies a lot.
See, what I liked about his death in Logan is the fact that we know that Hugh Jackman can't play Wolverine forever. So I thought this was a nice way to wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow.
I agree.
And
with that part.
and then they're
See,
going to
I don't
introduce
think you need to
some
wrap
new
it up.
actor.
Just like you can write a Spider-Man. You know, you can write a billion comic books. He never gets older. He never.
Right.
You know, you don't have to. So you just do a reboot or whatever. I don't need to see them die.
Q, I want your reaction to this.
Logan,
Wait. I want this statement I wanted to say. Wonder Woman is the best DC movie since The Dark Knight. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Oh, all right. I thought
Agree.
you were going to yell at me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Okay.
I thought Logan is actually number 7 on my list. It fell short because I felt like the villain was menacing, intelligent maybe, but it just didn't fit. I felt like we've seen it before. I felt like it was just them hunting mutants again. And so it felt the same. Wonder Woman surprisingly did not crack my top 10.
Wow. Okay.
And the only reason it did not crack my top 10 is because the villain fell so flat.
It was horrible.
Well, I liked the fact that we were led to believe that the villain was going to be that German general, and I liked that concept. But then when we found out that he wasn't Ares, and then Ares showed up, I agree with you. I thought that was one of the worst villains I've ever seen in a comic book movie.
Yeah, I felt like. So you're sitting here telling me that World War I was started by the god of... No, I'm not buying it.
Right.
So to me, that was the worst DC villain ever, and we had Mr. Freeze, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. So
Actually, I think the worst DC villain ever was the one that showed up in Justice League.
I was going to say Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf
I think might have
was
played a
horribly rendered, looked awful on film,
yeah.
and was a terrible,
Surprisingly,
terrible villain.
still
You still
I
think
take
Ares
him
was
over
worse?
Ares. I take him over Ares.
Would you?
I felt
okay.
Ares fell just for he's the god of war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have the god of war, you expect something better than what you got. You know what I mean?
I thought, the actor that appeared throughout the movie before we realized he was Ares, I thought he did a good job. But when they revealed that he was Ares, they should have had somebody else step in.
Exactly.
Here we got
He's not
this
menacing.
guy with a mustache playing this god of
CGI
war. and
mustache.
It really
At that.
bugged me.
He looked. You know what he looked like? He looked like he was about to go down with the Titanic. That's exactly. He looked like the guy that played Ismay on the Titanic. That's exactly what he looked like.
English professor.
Yeah. So
Your
I
paper's
didn't-
due tomorrow.
I wasn't buying it. The God of War on Injustice, the video game, is more menacing than him.
Is there anyone in your top 5, any movie in your top 5 we have not touched on yet?
Yeah, 2 actually.
right.
1 was Dark Knight, 2 was Avengers, 3 was Batman '89. My 4 was Superman 2.
That's interesting you say that because that is number 7 on my list, and I rank it higher than Superman 1.
Me too.
I think it's a more solid movie.
Yep, me too. I agree with the solid movie. Even though Superman 1 created the whole superhero genre per se.
Yeah, it is definitely the
Um,
book of Genesis.
But it's just kneel before Zod. It's just
It is. One of
Come
the
on now.
greatest movie villains of all time.
Of all time.
Zod
I
is.
agree. Yeah, I agree. 2 is definitely better than 1.
yeah, it's Superman 2 just does it for me.
The one thing that kills Superman 1, I love the origin story. I love all that stuff. But the one thing that kills it is the reversal of time, spinning the earth backwards. That established in the very first movie that nothing is permanent in the Superman universe and that he could bring Lois back from the dead. And that ruined the movie for me.
And if you remember, Superman in those movies were so overpowered. Like, remember he had the power; he could just lift people up with his finger.
And
That's
lasers
what I
from
mean.
the eyes.
That's why I was never like a big Superman fan, just
Yeah.
because he was like too invincible. to
Yeah,
me.
he
like
just
like
cannot
he,
be
he had so many powers.
But that's
And
exactly
just-
why I think 2 is so great, is because he was stripped of those powers. And he
Right.
got
Yeah.
the
Right, it was
crap
more-
kicked out of
yeah.
him. And that's what makes that movie so interesting.
Exactly.
Right. And let's not discredit 3
I
when
was
he gets
gonna
the
say.
Tire Kryptonite and we get the evil Superman
And he gets
that
drunk.
did not have a goatee, but he should have.
Look, I
What about Richard
He
Pryor?
did have the stubble.
I was gonna say 3. If I'm gonna go with a Superman movie, it's 3. It had Richard Pryor in it.
Was that 3 or was that 4?
That was 3.
That
Was
was,
it
3.
3? 4 was the one where he fought the sun guy, right?
Solar Man.
Yeah, I had kind of tuned out at that point. I think I saw it.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Richard. 3's my guy.
And even like in 2, Gene Hackman, as great as Gene Hackman was in the first one, I think playing off of Zod made him just that much better. Like when he comes into the Daily Planet, he's like, "Remember, white flag, surrender," like stuff like that. Just
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
off of.
Oh, he was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
All right, we only got a few minutes left. Q, rattle off the rest of your top 10 real quick.
Okay, number 5 was Spider-Man 2. Number 6 was Incredibles. Number 7 was Logan. Number 8 was Superman. Number 9 was Deadpool, and number 10 was Punisher Warzone.
All right. For me, number 6 was Avengers. Number 7, Superman 2. Number 8, The Incredibles. Number 9, Kick-Ass, which you mentioned earlier. And number 10, Wonder Woman. Ryan, you said you stopped at 4, right? Do you have any other titles you want to throw out?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple real quick. I really liked Spider-Man Homecoming. I also had Kick-Ass on mine. I also like Kick-Ass 2, by the way. Suicide Squad, I know not a lot of people like that, but I actually really enjoyed that a lot.
Well, I think Harley Quinn made Suicide Squad.
Absolutely.
I thought the villain was awful. I liked the dynamics of the characters, but
I was
to
just
think these
entertained.
were all villains, but they were all kind of good guys was sort of weird. But Harley Quinn made that movie.
For sure. And then just to kind of wrap it up, I guess, Orgasmo.
Tim?
I do own Orgasmo, but it did not make my top 10. My other ones are X-Men Days of Future Past, Captain America Civil War, Kick-Ass, Swamp Thing, and Thor Ragnarok.
I like Ragnarok.
Wow.
did not think I would hear that tonight.
What? Thor? Oh,
Swamp Thing, I absolutely loved Swamp Thing. Adrienne Barbeau and her nude scenes.
Exactly.
It was every kid's fantasy, and
A nude
totally.
scene is a
it
fantasy
had
book?
heart, and it was Swamp Thing was a great movie.
I agree.
The only one that wasn't mentioned that was in my top 10 was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I almost put that in.
Yeah, I had that written down too.
I had that written down.
I had that written
I
down.
never get into the Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and
Come
Teenage
on,
Mutant
man.
Ninja Turtles Secret of the Ooze.
That was the
Yeah.
second one.
Go
All right.
Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Come on now.
I thought the first one was pretty damn entertaining. I enjoyed the first TMNT.
Absolutely.
All right, so that wraps up our talk of superhero movies. Now, you guys argued earlier that had we included comic book movies, that would be a completely different list. We'll have to revisit that at some point. Q, throw out one title at me that you would have included had we included comic book movies. What did you say earlier?
History of Violence.
History of Violence.
Oh,
I would have
V for
never.
Vendetta.
All right, yeah.
Ooh, good one. Good one.
The
All right, we're gonna have
I would say Sin City and
Sin City's a
The
good
Road.
one. Yeah,
Condor Man.
Condor Man. I
We
don't
were
know.
talking about Condor Man earlier.
Any
I didn't see
Zorro.
that at the theater.
What
Any
about-
Zorro.
The Mask of the Zorro with Antonio
Lone
Banderas was
Ranger.
absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Well, that Lone Ranger movie wasn't too good, but you'd have to go back a few years.
Green
for
Hornet?
that. All right. On that note, we'll have to revisit this again at some point at a later date. Q, thanks for joining us, and
No problem.
be sure to look for Q on Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi when I believe, I don't know if I should reveal this, but it may premiere earlier than it normally does in the season. So keep your eye out for new episodes of Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi.
Spoilers.
And thank you for listening to Movies with for Dumb Guys. Is that what it's called? And we will see you next time.
I don't know. Aren't we the dumb guys?
We are.